Hey guys, welcome back to the Far Better Podcast. And I'm sure that the title is probably one of the big reasons you tuned in this time around. I'm quitting Far Better. In 2019, I began to want to podcast. I had some audio equipment and wanted to put it to use in Somerville where I was working at the time. A little bit of a backstory. A long time ago now, 14 years ago, in fact, I was, 17, really around 16, I guess, when this happened, August. And I started a web show, is what we called it, called Lessons from a Park Bench. My mom had bought this park bench and thought it was going to be this great accent piece in our front yard, tie everything together. And I hated the thing. It was a pain to move when I mowed. It was difficult to get around. It was frustrating. I can remember more than one occasion when I took that park bench and threw it to get it out of the way as much as I could have thrown it. I didn't go very far, but I was so fed up of that thing and wanted it gone. But one particular day I decided to do this web show, and I don't know what it was, but I couldn't get any service outside of sitting at that park bench. I tried my dad's office at home. I tried my bedroom. I tried the kitchen. I tried the living room. I tried everywhere I could think of, but it wouldn't upload. And so I went outside and sat on that park bench, and I recorded the first of around 30 to 40 total episodes. It was a wild time for me because I was not trained yet. I look back at a lot of that footage and cringe and think, man, I could do a better job with that today. But that show aired off and on from 2010 to 2014. In 2014, I got engaged and then got married in 2015, decided to go to preaching school. In the process of all of that, and the portion of my life recording videos and doing what is now podcasting ended for me. And at the time that I stopped doing that, it was a program on the Gospel Broadcasting Network. I was working for GBN in large part because of that web show. I got a taste of doing that. I wanted to do more. I got to see the director of operations and the executive director. Don Blackwell and Mark Teskey served in those roles at the time. Don, of course, still serves as executive director. I met my future father-in-law in person at an interview for a job at GBN. And in that interview, the most unexpected thing happened in my mind. I couldn't believe that they asked me to record Lessons from a Park Bench as a GBN program. That was so, to this day, one of the greatest honors I've ever been privileged to do is that web show and then turning it into a GBN program. While I was doing that program for GBN and working for the network at the time, I met my future wife. We fell in love. And I took that old park bench and I restored it. And then I proposed to her on it. And we got married and came to school and all of the wonderful things that happened there. But I say all that to say this. There is a point, I promise. I wanted to bring that show back and was determined that when I wanted to podcast in 2019, that was the medium that I was going to use. And the name was already set. Lessons from a Park Bench. Easy. A buddy of mine, Jordan Pugh, at the time, was also beginning his podcast journey and had been doing it for a decent bit of time. And so I reached out to him for advice on how to do this, how to start it. And I told him the name that I had thought. I said, I think I'm going to do Lessons from a Park Bench again. And I remember being initially hurt when he said, hey, you've done that before. And it's probably best that you do something different. But he was right. And I went back to my office after having lunch that day because I got the text from him during lunch. Kind of ruined my whole day at the moment that I got the text. But I went back to my office and began to put the final touches on my Bible class for that afternoon and that evening. And I was in Philippians 1. And I was reading what Paul wrote. And I should have planned for this better, but I'm going to grab my New Testament here. Hold on a second. Nothing like on-the-fly Bible turning. And I was in Philippians chapter 1, and I had just begun the section of verse 18. Paul had been talking about these people who were trying to preach Christ, verse 15, from envy and strife, and others from goodwill. But in verse 18, where we just happened to have left off the week before, he says, what then? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is preached. And in this I rejoice, yes, and will rejoice, for I know that this will turn out for my deliverance through your prayer and the supply of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, according to my earnest expectation and hope that in nothing I shall be ashamed, but with all boldness, as always, so now also Christ will be magnified in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. But if I live on in the flesh, this will mean fruit from my labor, yet what I shall choose I cannot tell. For I'm hard-pressed between the two, having a desire to depart and be with Christ, which is far better. And I read that, and I remember thinking, that could work. I reached out to my buddy Jordan. I sent him the title. I sent him a tagline even. And I recorded my first 3 or 5 episodes. I didn't release those. They really shouldn't have been. So it's probably a decision that I made not to do that. And I recorded around 27 episodes in the first season. And I remember thinking that this is just going to be me. I'm not going to really get any traction here. It is what it is. But I went through and continued to do a summer show. I did a bunch of things that were very ambitious at the time. This is harder than I thought it was going to be. And for whatever reason, I took a break in August of 2019 and I stopped filming it. Life got in the way, life got busy, and I focused on my health. And now, in my 170th episode on the Scattered Abroad Network, I'm quitting. It's time. I'll say more in the next 2 weeks on why and what I plan to do next. But it feels appropriate to just say thank you right now. This show has certainly changed my life. I hope and pray that it has changed yours. And that we will always remember the core message of this program was to please God now so our eternity can be far better. Now, don't unsubscribe just yet. Stick with me for the last 2 weeks of this season. And give me an opportunity to tell you about what's coming next and to explain better why this is happening. Until then, take care.